webinar. Great that you're all here. Of course, we were planning this event to be live first in London due to train strikes and other things that have happened. This is now a webinar, so I'm sure we will be able to transport all the information we wanted to do in the event live here in the webinar as well. My name is Rene. I will do the hosting in the beginning, and then I will hand over to our guest speaker, Bob, in a minute before we go into the product launch as such. But before we go there, let me quickly go through some housekeeping first. All of you will be on mute during the webinar, so we can ensure that we have good sound quality and you understand everything that we will be saying. And there will be obviously an opportunity for question and answers in the end. Please use the chat facility on the right to put your questions in there. We will record them during the webinar, and in the end, we will go through them and answer them one by one, if this makes sense. Good. For the agenda, so what we will do quickly, I'll give you a quick introduction about Macwell as such, who we are for those who do not know all the details, and what is our vision and mission. I will then hand over to Bob, who speaks about sustainability, circular economy, and how this connects to emergency lighting as such. And afterwards, we go into the product launch and the new exciting launches we have just launched this quarter and which will be available in the next couple of weeks and months from our side. Good. First to myself, for those who don't know me, my name is Rene Joppi. I said I'm the MD of Macwell. I'm in lighting for around 15 years now, of which 7 are with Macwell. And I'm always saying I like to see myself as someone who comes from engineering, went through different commercial areas up to the responsibility we have now. And I think it's important also to see that engineering, commerciality, sustainability all goes hand in hand when we talk about emergency lighting in general. I'm also part of the ISO Council, or Macwell is, which I represent in the council, which is part of the LIA, where obviously also Bob is part of, and who kindly also declared and put himself forward today to support us with this launch event. What is our vision and mission? In essence, we're an emergency lighting supplier. Number one is we want to make the world a safer place. We want to be a compliant solution provider that sits on the forefront, that provides solution that make a building safe to evacuate in case of emergency situations. There is safety and compliance is always on the forefront. It's our passion, and that's why we are always taking this as our first step. Other things comes afterwards, but safety and compliance is always on the top. Safety is not just a good product, it's also using the right product in the right application in the right moment. And that's what we stand for. And I hope you will see this afterwards mirrored in our product as well. A little bit about Macwell. We were founded in 1979, so have a little bit more than 40 years of history. We have our local facility here in the West Midlands, where we do electronic manufacturing, we do development, electronic manufacturing, delivery. Everything is done in-house here locally. We have our own design team, our own laboratory, and literally from the bare board, the electronic components, everything is produced here up until the final luminaire that is mounted into the different projects all around the UK and all around the world. We have obviously our office here in the UK, but also have a big sales and distribution office in the Middle East based from Dubai. Good. That's just a brief introduction about Macwell. I wanted to make sure that everybody is on the same level here. I will now hand over the word to Bob, who speaks about circular economy and sustainability. Thank you, Bob, for being with us today. And I give you the word. You can introduce yourself. I'm sure that you have plenty of things to talk about yourself.
Thank you very much, Rene. That's really kind of you. Thank you for the invite to Macwell's HQ for the event today. As Rene said, I'm head of policy and academy at the Lighting Industry Association. So like Macwell, we're all about trust, we're about compliance, we're about quality and supporting our members and the wider industry. There's a lot of talk right now about circular economy. And I'm here as well as lead author of TM66, which is CIBSE's reference document on circular economy in lighting. Macwell have asked me to give you a keynote introduction to circular economy and how design decisions in emergency lighting affect the circularity of schemes. Next slide, please. So let's begin with the circular journey so far. Next slide, please. Let me quote from SIBS's TM56, Technical Memorandum 56. What we build, how we build it, and the products we use will come under enormous pressure to be energy efficient. Well, that brings us no surprises. Our industry has been delivering energy savings for decades. Indeed, to a large extent, it's been the prime mover for growth in our industry with the move to LED. Next slide, please. So this diagram kind of shows you what we've been doing up until now. For many of us, this is where we still are, concentrating on the in-use phase. So it's energy savings supporting return on investment decisions. And at the end of life, we thought that our manufacturers and their WEEE compliance was enough. But what actually happens to most luminaires at end of life is they go to an authorized waste treatment center, and only 7.5% of fittings are picked up under WEEE. And when they get to those waste treatment centers, they're just shredded. They're not recycled. They're just the basic raw materials are recovered. Next, please. So this is what we've been doing. It's the linear economy of take, make, waste. We extract resources, we produce them, we distribute them, we put them into a building, and end of use, we throw them away. It's brilliant. It's the cheapest way of making a luminaire, but it only has two very significant problems. The first of these is it assumes the infinite availability of resources. That was great until things like Brexit, COVID, chip shortages, labor shortages, logistics disruption, and Ukraine. All of that disrupted our supply chains. And the consequences of throwing things away? Well, that's not a problem. We'll just leave that to our kids and grandchildren. Next, please. So let's come back to TM56. Let's look at some of those key words in that introduction. Wider environmental impacts, resource efficiency, lifespan, durability, embedded carbon, waste, end of life. From this, we can see that sustainability is much, much wider than simply saving energy and use. And, there's a lot been going on recently. But note the date. This came from 2014. SIBS's work is 8 years. And let's go back further to some of the real key developers of circular economy and the MacArthur Foundation. That's 12 years. Circular economy is not new. Next, please. So let's change the diagram to what we should be doing. On the left, you can see cradle to gate, from resources to the factory gate. So that's resource inputs, embodied carbon, manufacturing waste. And then we go through the in-use phase, of course. And then we come to end of life. But with circular economy, we're not just putting it through a WEEE scheme and mainly landfilling it. We're bringing those resources back into use. Next, please. This is the typical circular economy diagram. If you look at the left-hand side, you can see vertically, that's your take, make, waste linear model. But you can see circles. Now, instead of throwing away, we service a failed fitting. Where a space has changed or new technologies exist, we refurbish. We try to keep it at the highest level of economic and functional value as long as possible. So you don't shred a failed fitting, you fix it. And under the right to repair, under the single lighting regulation, that's coming. We have to do these things legally. A fitting stays a fitting. It retains its value. And next, if it's no longer fit for use in the space, it can be returned for remanufacture, upgrade, or modification. The fitting becomes a new fitting, but retaining as much value from the resources in it as possible. And only after this, if it has a little life left in the present form or no life, the usable parts are harvested and only finally recycled. Next slide, please. And this is what everybody thinks circular economy is. It's repairability. And some components, for example, LED drivers and batteries do, of course, fail. Components do improve. New technologies do arise, and the buildings they're installed in do change. For example, the post-COVID office is a very different place to the pre-pandemic one. So those arguing for repairability, and they're completely correct, would say that to build a building services product with a 10 to 20-year lifespan that does not allow repair and manufacture is the wrong route. Next slide, please. But there's another way of doing it, which is just as valid. And these are not either or, they can be both. This is another way of keeping resources embodied in the product at their highest value for the longest time. That is durability. So a product or component simply works for its expected life, but it needs high quality and often supporting technologies. Next slide, please. Now, I might know a fair amount about sustainability, but I freely admit I'm not a battery expert. We could talk about the benefits of NiCad versus nickel metal hydride versus lithium iron phosphate, both in their energy density and in their sustainability impacts of both manufacture or disposal. But I'm not going to. The conversation here is keeping materials at their highest value. So it quickly becomes apparent that battery life is a large part of the sustainability equation. The longer the life, the longer embodied resources are useful for. The lower the environmental impact of disposal, the less the carbon impacts of the facilities management company intending to swap out the batteries. And of course, the lower the need for new resources to make that replacement battery. Next slide, please. With the climate and energy cost crisis, we are reminded that the cheapest and lowest carbon and the cheapest and lowest cost electricity is the energy you don't use. And the same applies to battery sustainability. All other things being equal, the longer a battery lasts, the longer its embodied resources stay at their highest value. So, how do we do that? Well, ignoring the two obvious ones of chemistry and quality, it all comes down to the temperature and the charging regime. Next slide, please. To eke out maximum life, do not thermally stress your battery. So that would likely be a steady state temperature of about 30 degrees max and peaks of 70 degrees max. Now, some systems have report back which can monitor these temperatures. Next slide, please. For best battery life, it's all about charging. Do not overcharge. Consider your battery charging algorithm, which should also ensure your battery is kept within its temperature limits. Be careful in the installation phase. Batteries have a limited number of duty cycles, which is the charge to full discharge. So don't keep disconnecting the supply and fully discharging before your building is even occupied. Next slide, please. We all saw on screen, on our TV screens, and maybe locally, the Grenfell Tower disaster. Under the Hackett report, which was the government's response to that disaster, the talk is of building MOTs. There will be a proof that your building continues to meet regulations for the next 3 years. Now, you might find that if you don't have a monitoring system, then you'll need to replace all your batteries, whether this was needed or not. Thus, the embodied resources will have an artificially short life. Next slide, please. So now to CIBSE's TM66. When creating it, one of the comments received from our early consultation was the director of BDP Lighting, who's Mark Riddler. He said, as a specifier, we need a checklist that you can tick or mark in so that the minimum standards can be negotiated with the client and then defended and equal approved. So for the work for the team from CIBSE, What started out as a fact file and a simple checklist turned into a full technical memorandum, which is TM66, and the circular economy assessment method. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And I should say, it's good to talk. It's important to reinforce that this work would only be effective if we engage with a wide cross-section of the industry. So our contributors and reviewers included a leading product designer, a major end user, 4 lighting design practices, and 6 manufacturers of differing scale. And it's very, very important to say this was written by the industry for the industry. And I must thank the whole team who made it as good as it is. Next slide, please. So what did we produce? To successfully embody circular economy in our day-to-day jobs, we need the information to make decisions. So CIBSE TM66 is the book of words. It provides a background to the circular economy, it explains the basic principles, it sets out the drivers and barriers to its adoption. And it does this for manufacturers, for specifiers, for end users, facilities managers, across the whole industry. Next slide, please. And then we have the metric, the way of measuring circularity. And that is the circular economy assessment method. And it's a scoring system that Mark Riddler so cleverly asked for. It's split into 4 main tabs: product design, manufacturing materials, and ecosystem. You'll be pleased to know I'm not going to read out the whole of all this, but let's have a quick look at some things it covers: reusability, upgradability, burning hours, materials, fixing, so that's screws versus glues, resilience to digital obsolescence, and competence and buy-in. Next slide, please. It went live last September and met with good reviews. Now, don't take my word for it. Let's quote Kivan Shaw. At last, he said, TM66 provides a comprehensive standardized scoring system for circular economy aspects of lighting equipment. But this next bit I love very much. He said, TM66 is delightfully readable. Now, it's not often you do get a standard from learned society that's actually interesting to read. Next slide, please. So what's coming up next? Well, we're now producing the next metrics. This is going to be on controls, emergency lighting, and facility management. Several manufacturers are already rating their luminaires, while others are seeking assistance to do so, with a shared ambition to ensure credibility, objectivity, and consistency in their CM markings. To help that, we've hit the big button on TM66 Circular Economy Assured. Now, this is an official CIBSE and LIA joint venture from the people who actually wrote the book and wrote CM. It supports the credibility of circular economy claims from manufacturers in the lighting industry by giving third-party assurance. Now, in Europe, third-party proof of all sustainable claims is something which is coming down the legal tracks. It will provide a quality mark for the sustainable design, manufacture, and after-sales support of lighting products. TM66 Circular Economy Assured combines the ongoing work and expertise of both CIBSE in developing tools and guidance on embodied carbon and transitioning to net zero, and the LIA's quality assurance systems and independent UCAS accredited lab. I should emphasize here that both CIBSE and the LIA are not-for-profit organizations. We're both .orgs. So again, very much it's by the industry for the industry. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd like to hand back to Renee. I'm going to stay here on the team. So if you have any questions, please post any questions on the chat, and then we'd love to answer them at the end of the next sessions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob, for this excursion into sustainability and the circular economy. I think all of us have been in touch in the last couple of weeks and months with this topic, and I think looking forward into the next 6, 12, 24 months, this will become a topic more and more and more in all our projects, especially with the Hack report coming out, with other measures, the energy crisis, if you want, that is now happening. Sustainability will come in the forefront, and thank you for the insight, Bob, on this area, and I'm sure there are some questions afterwards. We're looking forward to go through them.
Absolutely, thank you.
Good. With having this excursion done into circular economy, I'm now trying to lead this back into the actual product launch. Why we decided to focus on circular economy in this keynote is like I said in the beginning. Obviously, compliance and safety is the number one topic when it comes to emergency lighting. However, this is not the only thing, and our products, which you see afterwards, really very much try to address as well sustainability and longevity in projects and from a quality perspective. But before we go into the actual luminaires, into the actual products, I want to talk a little bit about the monitoring system and the Nlight ecosystem, which how we call it, which provides the monitoring and capability to ensure that your buildings are compliant, to ensure your buildings are safe throughout their lifetime. When we talk about the Nlight ecosystem, and some of you may know, we already had monitoring system, which was our Nlight Connect touch panel, which was a touch panel Dali based and was able to control up to 128 luminaires. What we have done now, we have expanded this into various different dimensions and launched the Nlight ecosystem, which also we're happy to say won a Build Back Better award this week, which we also announced, and which is an homage as well that we are on the right track on what we're doing here. What is the Nlight ecosystem? What you see on the screen is that the Nlight ecosystem consists out of a variety of different things. Number one, when you look on the far left side, it's a touch panel that is wired and connected now up to 1,000 luminaires, meaning that you have one single point that can monitor big sites and big installations. This is used by extended Dali technology and allows a good and cohesive monitoring of a whole building. But sometimes you cannot put wires, obviously, into a building, and that's where the second solution comes into place, which is Nlight Air. This is a wireless solution based on 868 radio, which allows to connect wirelessly throughout the building. I come a little bit into more detail afterwards. And you can seamlessly connect many of these systems together on a backbone bus. And if you have a big estate to monitor, all of this can afterwards be connected to a cloud system, which you see a little screenshot here. I come a little bit into detail as well in this bit, which allows you then connecting different panels, different sites to one central dashboard, which is especially good when you have big rollouts or big central facility management entities who monitor a variety of sites. So our aim here was to create one seamless solution between different installation scenarios, between different sizes of building, which allow you to go online, which allows you to create a 100% monitored environment for the safety critical system of emergency lighting. Next one, Charlotte. To the panel, to the Nlight Connect panel as such, like I said, it's a one single, very unobtrusive unit in the building, but all the intelligence of the system is in this little unit. It has an own touch screen, which allows any user, also without too much experience and knowledge, to see what actual challenges and problems are on the site, if there are any. This single unit by itself is capable of monitoring, like I mentioned before, up to 1,000 luminaires, which is quite a big site if you think about emergency luminaires, where you have much fewer numbers compared to standard lighting in a building. It gives ultimate control of the system. Everything can be commissioned from this single point of access, and it requires it performs automatically all the testing that is needed from a standardization perspective, which is the function duration tests that are needed, but also it gives you feedback data of the actual status and health of the luminaires, like battery charge, temperature, and these kind of things, which are all part of the system as such. And this panel is also the core of the wireless solution. Whether wired or wired, the panel stays from an intelligent and capability perspective the same. But what we have tried to do is make it seamlessly possible to just basically cut the wires on each side, on the luminaire side and on the panel side, and bridge this with a wireless signal. We have chosen 868 megahertz as a frequency because emergency lighting is not as dense as a network in a building as standard lighting. Therefore, Bluetooth or, for example, 2.4 gigahertz, which is standard Wi-Fi technology, if you want, has a lower range when it comes to going through walls and buildings. And therefore, 868 was our technology of choice in this case, which allows us to get good range, good connectivity between the luminaires, and allows to monitor and to connect to the luminaire safely. Of course, wired and wireless solutions can be connected via 4G connection to the cloud or via internet to the cloud at any point in time. And once they are connected to this cloud, you have the ability to view all your sites. You see here on this screenshot here, there's now 3 panels, which is our site we have here in Aldridge. We have 3 panels installed, and all the 3 panels are visible there at one single access point. You can go into detail on each panel, onto each luminaire, literally see the actual battery status of a certain luminaire live on the cloud. And it gives you all this information. And if your site is big, for 3 panels, it's obviously sometimes an overkill to have all this connectivity. But we have installations where the customer has 100 panels installed and over 50, 60, 70 sites. And then a cloud system and a monitoring system like this becomes extremely powerful. This cloud system allows to download reports, make them, archive them for the future in case they are needed. And it's a full all-around solution to make sure that any emergency lighting installation fulfills all compliance requirements. And having said that, why we have a product launch now, this product is not necessarily just developed now and just launched now. We actually, over the last 12, 18 months, have installed over 100 sites just for one client only, which was the Wealden District Council, where we literally refitted 106 sites in their district, which are smaller housing blocks, all the communal areas we refitted with new luminaires and with systems in each of these sites. And all of them are connected via a SIM card, 4G to the cloud, so that the end client can monitor all of these 100 sites from one area, which was really powerful. And for them, this gives them 2 things, which is absolutely incredible from their perspective. Number one, which you would not think, it gives them an asset register, because very often those managers do not know, those asset managers do not actually know what kind of assets they have in each building, how many luminaires are there when they were installed. So this is one thing they got, and they got a fully compliant solution for all their buildings. And with this Nlight ecosystem, all in all, we were able now to create a comprehensive solution that really allows us to put, again, compliance and safety into the forefront of the emergency lighting installations we are providing. Good. That's so far to the system. Systems are one very important key part of the solution. However, obviously, the system is the monitoring platform, which then monitors the luminaires, and the luminaires are themselves intelligent and need to be intelligent to allow all this functionality to happen. And for the next part, I want to hand over to Andy Davies, who is on the call as well, and he will talk you through the new platforms and new products, which are also part of this launch, which enable a lot of the technologies and things I just mentioned before. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Rene. Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about some new luminaires, but not just the luminaires. I'm going to start with some of the platforms that we've developed to support them and enable us to offer these new products. And I'm going to start with some of the battery technology. So if we move on to the next page, we can see that what we're trying to do here is offer a genuine choice, actually, between different battery technologies that can equally offer a very sustainable solution in the luminaires that I'll present to you. The reason we want to do this really harks back to one of the comments that Bob made earlier, which was, we can talk about the benefits of lithium versus nickel, NiCad versus NIM, and so on. But actually, I think what people are looking for here is a solution that is, on the one hand, sustainable, on the other hand, reliable, and I think as much choice as possible in these difficult times of supply chain and uncertainty. So what we have here are really two battery technologies: MW Life, which is a lithium iron phosphate platform, and a nickel metal hydride platform. And the point I'll make here is that these offer a genuine choice with the same level of battery and driver warranty, regardless of which system you have and regardless of which luminaire you have, with one or two exceptions, but pretty much across the range. So the first one of these that I talk about is what we call the MW Life or Macwell Life platform. If we move to the next page, this is really Macwell's entry into lithium battery technology, and I know that this is lithium battery technology has been on the market for some time from some of our competitors for a number of years. And this really is Macwell taking the leap into this technology, and we've been maybe not the first to market with this, but what we've looked to do is to make sure that when we bring this technology to market, we bring it both with intelligence and with ultimate safety. Lithium technology is not one to leap into without really understanding the nuances behind it. So when we talk about MW Life, we really talk about not just the fact that it's a lithium iron phosphate battery, but the fact that it does come with the extended 6-year battery plus driver warranty. And it also can achieve that through intelligence. So it has its own dedicated drivers and inverters, which give temperature feedback and control. Lithium is a very temperature sensitive technology, and if not managed correctly, can result in a thermal runaway. So our temperature feedback, we believe, is absolutely vital if you're going to get the best out of this type of system, and also install it in a safe way. The drivers that go with this have embedded software, which we call Origin. And some of you may know the Origin platform that has been in some of the Macwell electronic drivers for a number of years. We now call it Origin 2.0 to reflect the fact that this is across these two battery platforms, and that gives intelligent charging, intelligent battery management, temperature measurement, and diagnostic data such as things like number of cycles, temperature history, voltage history. All of these things are really important in ensuring that you can get the best from whichever system you choose to put into your building. And Macwell Life now has all of that in the platform that we're bringing and announcing to you today. But it isn't just about the lithium iron phosphate; it's also about other battery technologies. So there is some concern in the market right now about the availability of different commodities, different metals, different components in these cells. So our next platform is the nickel metal hydride platform. So on to the next page. Nickel metal hydride in its own right has been around for a number of years, and has been around for a number of years in Macwell products, and it in its own right is a very sustainable and recyclable technology. So what we're doing here is using the years of experience with nickel metal hydride that we have, and optimizing it really, and again improving our Origin platform to provide the same features from that. So what we are able to do is offer exactly the same performance, exactly the same longevity, and exactly the same warranty by optimizing our smart charge firmware based on more than 6 years of field data with our Origin platform. So as a result of that, we can offer the 6 years plus battery and driver warranty for this, as well as with the lithium iron phosphate platform. So you have a genuine choice. Your next page, please. Limited time today, so there's a huge amount of technology and knowledge around the battery technologies that we've chosen and developed for our products. And one of the things that I think can back this up is actually, more education in the field. So we've also can announce that we now have a continuous professional development certified, CPD certified a course covering battery technologies for emergency lighting. That's not a pitch of Macwell technologies, but it is a course that aims to educate around the different nuances and the different pros and cons of different types of battery, with specifically the emergency lighting application, in mind. So we would invite anyone here who's interested to contact Macwell, contact myself, contact your Macwell representative to arrange a CPD event, and we'd be happy to support you on that. Next page. The final platform that we would like to discuss today is the Dali 2 platform as it applies to emergency lighting. So generation 2 of Dali, Dali 2 has been in existence in a number of years in general lighting, and since I've been at Macwell for 2.5 years and customers have been asking us around our Dali products, we often had the question, are your products Dali 2? And up until very recently, we've had to say that's not really a relevant question for emergency lighting, because Dali 2 for emergency was not a ratified published standard. But it was being discussed in the background, and in fact 2022 sees the release of Dali 2 for emergency, or the first stage of the release of Dali 2 for emergency. And in that standard, Macwell have played a leading role in developing. Our engineers have been playing a key role on the working groups and technical committees that have developed that emergency standard. And what we have is a two-stage release. So edition 1 and edition 2. So a lot of numbers here. So really, the thing to remember on Dali 2 as it applies to emergency lighting is edition 1 is published now and really covers interoperability. What it's really doing is ensuring that the test sequences for any product that achieves Dali 2 certification can be interoperable on a Dali 2 system that does the emergency lighting things like automated testing and reporting. That is now open for registrations today. But it won't stop there. In 2023, there is a plan that this will be extended now to actually not just cover interoperability, but to include more advanced features and functionality, a lot of which we have already implemented in our own system, Origin 2, around things like that I've already mentioned, like diagnostics, data, how the batteries are cycled, what the history of the charge and discharge is, what the history of the temperature is, what the various features are. I can't say too much about specifically what's in the Dali 2 standard, obviously, because that's yet to be finalized and released, but those kind of things that can give you much more intelligence about how your emergency light is being managed and what its history is. And Dali 2 will ultimately get to that point so that you have that in a standardized format. So with those platforms, we can now move on to some of the new range of emergency luminaires that we're announcing today. And we're going to start on the next page with a range that we call Xylex Lrx. So those of you familiar with the Zylex range of luminaires will know that we have a series of luminaires called LR and LR 1, 2, 3, 4 ranges of things that we've had in the past. And to a certain extent, these look very familiar as luminaires because in terms of their form factor, in terms of their physical size, they have, they will look very, very similar. But there is a difference, and the difference is, number one, they are available with the Macwell Life and nickel metal hydride battery platforms with the supporting warranty that I've just described to you. They'll be available with Dali 2 version of Dali as well as the previous version of Dali. And most significantly, I think they're now being launched in 3 separate ranges. So we have LRX, LRX HO, which stands for high output, and LRX HP, which stands for high performance. And these have different lumen packages. So previously we were less than 200 lumens on all of the range. We now have 200 lumens for the LRX. We have a high output version up to 375 lumens. And the real powerful one, which is the HP, up to 900 lumens, which gives it really good opportunities to be deployed at very high mounting heights, as well as being possibly a solution of choice where you have high-risk task lighting, where you need a much higher lux level in your space in emergency. All of these have interchangeable optics. So really this is modularity, enabling choice of optics and luminaire to achieve the right solution for your space. So whether it is an open area, whether it is an escape route, a designated escape route in a building, or whether it's an emphasis point, all of these things can be interchanged in these luminaires. And with these optics, we get really good performance. We get really, really high spacings. Up to 25 meters at up to 10-meter mounting height is achievable from this range. And with those spacings, of course, that means you can use less luminaires in a particular building. So less embodied carbon and less maintenance burden from that building. So that's another feature that's really, a step forward towards the circular economy credentials of the system. I've already mentioned we have the battery platforms that we have available across this range. They can be provided with higher IP ratings. They can be provided in standard, in Dali, and also in our Nlight Air wireless control that Rene presented to you, and various choices of finishes and colors as well. That's a recessed range, of course, Lrx. So going alongside that is a surface range, Lsx. And this has a new housing, which we've designed, and you can see the images there. And what we have here is really a mirror image of the Lrx range, but in these attractive surface mount units. Again, the ranges of LSX, LSX-HO, and LSX-HP, the same lumen packages there. On the HP, we're currently just going to offer it for project specific, but we can also embody these in a lot of other different custom form factors, which I'll come on to in a couple of slides' time. Really, I'll be repeating myself if I go around down this list too much. So all of the same features that in Lrx are basically available in Lsx. The same IP ratings, the same longevity, the same control and monitoring options, and they've been designed really also for user-friendly installation. Bezier fixings, cable entry points, all available in these luminaires. And to the next page. Yeah, so it does give us the opportunity here to do more custom specific, project specific solutions, all using basically the same engines that are in our standard Lrx and Lsx ranges. So really now the range of applications has become so wide that you can envisage that there's lots of different potential custom formats that could be required. So we have now also our Macwell Solutions initiative that we call it, which is essentially design services that we can offer for product design via that initiative that would embody the sort of technology platforms, the luminaire, emergency luminaire platforms that we offer as standard into maybe more custom, maybe more architectural formats. And really we'd invite anyone interested in this again to come to talk to a Macwell representative, and we can talk around what might be the right solution for your particular project, particularly on architectural projects that you can see some of these may be attractive for. On to the next page. Talking through some of the other products, we have expanded also with these new platforms our range of track luminaires called Track X now. X really to show the extra life and extra longevity that you can achieve with the new platforms. Again, at risk of repeating myself again, choice of the Macwell Life or the nickel metal hydride batteries, again with the same extended warranty. There's two form factors, basically because the different types of track that are out there really need two form factors to be able to offer it in all of the different control options. And most specifically, the X2 housing, which is the one there on the more square one there on the left, has a powder coated metal housing that provides provision for global and Stuki track in Dali. So basically now, previously we were limited in how much of the range we could offer with Dali monitoring. We now offer the whole range with Dali monitoring, and in a choice of two form factors that you can see there in the picture. Moving on to the next page. So Zyvex, whereas Xylex is the premium brand for Macwell's luminaires, emergency luminaires, so Zyvex is similarly for our exit signs, and they come in a multitude of form factors in their own right. And all of them are now available here, again with the choice of the Macwell Life or the nickel metal hydride batteries. You'll see that they're coded here EXB, EXC, and EXD. Just really the different designs and different form factors. EXB is really a surface-mounted bulkhead, although there are variants of that can turn it into a recessed product, but it's predominantly designed for wall mounting, over door mounting, to provide surface mount. EXC is a blade type of sign that's become very popular in the market over the last 2 years. It has a very flexible mounting that allows and a suspended, movable suspended blade, which allows you to mount it on the wall or on the ceiling. EXD is what some of you might know as the original Zyvex. We've now rebranded it EXD, and really that's to reflect, just to make a sort of a consistency around the range. There's nothing special about Zyvex that it shouldn't have its own code, so it's called EXD. And along into that range, we've brought in a EXD Beezer mount solution, and we've done that because we've been requested really in a number of different projects to actually make these signs a little bit more user friendly when it comes to mounting options. So this can now be mounted onto Beezer, so one of the few blade-based signs that can do that. And that also is the version of this that has the Nlight Air wireless capability. So we can introduce, there are standard products there which have the Nlight Air wireless capability there. And these are all available in different form factors. I mean, the whole range of variants would be far too many to put on one page, but whether you want recessed, semi-recessed, wall mount, ceiling mount, suspended, all of these are available, in different form factors across these ranges, and giving the user a lot of flexibility in the options. And the next page. So we've kind of introduced there a number of new products as well as the new platforms, but the new platforms have also been introduced into some of our existing well-known platforms. So you can also get with the Macwell Life and with the 6-year nickel metal hydride solution, and with the Dali 2, you can get the Zi-Fi, which is the world's smallest emergency luminaire on the left there. Our existing surface range, which is LS for high bay and mid bay applications. The BHD2 bulkhead, surface mount bulkhead, which is kind of like the EXB2 exit sign without the legend, but is like that kind of form factor. And also, of course, we can supply the ELED micro intelligent driver as a component with the lithium or the nickel metal hydride solution as an OEM product to power other third-party emergency luminaires. Next page. So a little bit on availability. This is a launch, so to be perfectly transparent on what's available, everything you've seen today is available now to order. Okay, so they're all signed off to the point where they can be ordered. There is a little bit of variation in terms of shipping availability, and with today's supply chain, I'm sure that comes as no surprise. So the Macwell Life products will be available to ship in volume from January 2023. All nickel metal hydrides can ship now. The only one that just needs a little bit more time is the LSX, which will be January 2023. Although there will be samples that our team will be taking around to demonstrate and to show to anyone who's interested. The full data sheets with product codes are currently just being finalized. They will be on the Macwell website by the end of this month. So basically the next 2 weeks, you will start to see these appear on the Macwell website. The commercial pricing is already defined. So please contact your Macwell representative for pricing on this. That is all available and signed off. Finally, photometric files, ulum.LDT files are also available. So if you want to start designing schemes for projects, all of those files are available. And again, please contact your Macwell representative, and they will also be online at the same time as the data sheets, but you can get them now actually by just getting in touch with us. Next page. Just to summarize then, we started off talking here about sustainability and circularity, and I think there are a number of features in emergency lighting that that are kind of play off the existing work that Bob and the team have been doing on lighting with TM66, but there's some specific things around emergency lighting that I think also need to be considered, and these are three of them here that I think are relevant to what we've been talking to you about today. Battery platforms, so what are the things in batteries that are important? Well, first of all, longevity, long life, and achieving that long life, not just claiming a long life, but also ensuring that the battery is managed such that, through the careful design and intelligent management, so that you actually achieve that life and can back it up by the warranty. A choice of chemistries to allow for supply chain uncertainty, because supply chain uncertainty brings different embodied carbon. If you might be finding that the source of the raw materials in the batteries might come from different places. So having a choice really allows you to be as flexible as possible. And of course, recyclability. Both Macwell Life and nickel metal hydride are recyclable technologies, and that's really important. In terms of the luminaires, the modular designs, allowing with the interchangeable optics, obviously high outputs, and with that coming high efficiency. Cool running, so essentially running them cool just again to give them the long life, and then optical control for large spacings. Use less of them to achieve a compliant installation. And then finally, the testing, having the Nlight ecosystem that Rene described, gives you convenience, gives you the ability to remain compliant and ensure compliant from a distance, but it allows you to do it on a statewide scale and on a large building scale. And with the remote access, avoid that unnecessary travel to the site when it can all be done remotely. So how much embodied carbon is in an engineer's van that travels from site to site, particularly across a large, diverse estate like, say, a Wealden council, being able to eliminate a vast majority of that travel is obviously also a factor. So everything we're doing here is designed really to provide a seamless sort of system, an ecosystem of products and solutions around sustainability and the circular economy. I think that summarizes the presentation. So thank you very much. We've now got a Q&A section, and I'll hand back to Rene to host that. And I think we're all going to come back on screen here.
Yes, thank you, Andy. Thank you for going through that. A couple of questions came in on the comments. A couple of questions came in on the Q&A. So we go through them. Keep them coming, everybody. If you have questions that come to your mind now, I would just start with the bottom from the bottom up at this stage, and then we give the questions between us. So first two questions, which were in one question together. Are the data files BIM compatible? BIM compatible? I will take this one. Generally, yes, they can be BIM compatible for the launch. At the moment, we have done it. We have restricted ourselves to the basics on LDT files, but all of them have the target to be fully compliant and introducible into BIM systems in this case. That will come within the next couple of weeks and months and ready for the projects and when the products are ready. The second question is there, how can you offer 6-year battery warranties? Andy, you want to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rene. I think how can we offer 6-year battery warranties is basically around the management of the batteries. So batteries have a cycle life, and different battery chemistries have different cycle lives, which is the number of cycles of charge and discharge that the battery is rated for. But achieving those cycle lives isn't just about the battery chemistry; it's about the management of that battery. And in electronics, there's a bit of a rule of thumb that if you every 10 degrees cooler that you run your critical components doubles the life, and a similar rule of thumb exists for battery technologies. So the cooler you run it, the longer it lasts. Simple as that. With lithium iron phosphate, you get a little bit of inherent cycle life gain, and that is why you see from the market a lot of extended warranties restricted to lithium iron phosphate type batteries, and that's similar for us, except that we're adding intelligence into the way we run them, so we can actually extend those warranties. With nickel metal hydride, it's about having the data and having the experience and knowing how to really optimize them. And again, that comes down to how we manage them in our luminaires and in our drivers. And the Origin 2.0 platform manages all of that with the way the batteries are charged, and the way the temperature is managed during the sort of duty cycle of the battery, both the charge, the discharge, and the general sort of monitoring of it. Okay, so I think that covers that.
Thank you, Andy. Long answer, but I think it's important because the second question goes into the same: is the battery warranty including a battery replacement within the 6 years? And I'll just answer this quickly. It's a clear no, because that would be very counterproductive if we would do that. So the warranty is clearly based on the expected life, minimum life of the battery if used in the right environment and monitored correctly, used with the right system. So definitely not including a battery replacement within this lifetime, within this battery warranty. Another question here is, how is emergency lighting considered for TM66? I think that's for you, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Rene. In the first version, the quick answer, it wasn't in a dedicated manner. We were certainly looking at things like warranties. But we're now we're pulling the teams back together. So there's going to be some additional modules of TM66 CM. One will be controls, one will be facilities management, how to keep your building circular. But most importantly for your question, one's going to be TM66 CM for emergency lighting. So that's covering everything from battery technologies to, very much as we've said here, warranties, thermal management, charging regimes, and how we understand that.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Next one. Where are we? Is Track X available with Enlight Air? Which was asked by Matt. Andy?
At the moment, the range that we will launch now does not have that availability. However, we are working on that, and we would expect the Track ranges to become compatible. That's a roadmap question. It shouldn't be too long before we see that. But in this current tranche of launches, not quite.
Yeah. We have tested it technically. If you can add to that, we have tested it. It is available. It's just one of the lower priority projects. That's why it's not part of this current launch at this stage. Second question for Matt: are any of the existing fittings being removed from the range?
For me?
Not well. I take this one if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not at the moment. At the moment, the existing products leave be in the range as they are now. However, obviously, we also run still more older technology when it comes to fluorescent products, which are now in the phase out process, but also nickel cadmium products, which is the older battery technology, is considered to be phased out within the next couple of months, or started to be phased out. It's not something that will happen overnight, and it will take time, but we're definitely looking forward to move on to these future technologies. Oh, the sun is coming into my face now. Good. Next question. What's the most number of devices Macwell has deployed on a single panel? Well, what I said before is these products we have launched now, they are not necessarily new. Some of them have been used with specific customers in the last 12 months, on the Enlight side specifically. And in the Middle East, we have, specifically because the projects are bigger there, we have roughly 20-30 projects where we are 800 plus luminaires on one single panel. So it's definitely already proven and tested in the field. From this perspective. Good. I have another question here from Matt. Where new systems are installed, does the push for circular economy include return and recycling of non-Macwell fittings, and does TM66 push for these to be returned to the OEM? That's the second part of the question to Bob. Does TM66 push for products to be returned to the OEM?
It doesn't. Right, there's two ways of answering this. If you're an OEM, it's great to be able to refurbish and service your fittings. That's fine. That's legitimate. That's a good way of doing it. Of course, then there's what you said was there's a third party, somebody, an existing fitting from a third party. Yeah, but you don't forget you're going to have to recertify that. But the whole point of circular economy that we're going to have ecosystems of how to handle products, not just emergency lighting, which is maybe particularly difficult, so that a third party can refurbish fittings. I know Rene started off the top saying about his 15 years in lighting, and I've done 35, and I know projects I've worked on where people have, and those fittings were now actually listed as part of a listed building. They'd listed our projectors, and somebody's gone in and converted them to LED. So, yeah, but you don't have to send those back to the original. That's not the point. The point is to always keep embodied resources. Who does it is down to the best person, the fit for purpose. What you want coming out of that, if they are going to be re-engineered, is that it is warranted, it is tested. Let's go back to Andy's really pertinent comment about heat and driver life and battery life. And therefore, it's going to be the thermal engineering is going to be critical all the way through.
Good. Thank you, Bob. To the first part of your question, Matt, does the push include return recycling of non-Macwell fittings? I consider this to be a Macwell specific question. It's the same as Bob says. Going into the future, there will be people, and that could be us, and we have not considered this at this stage, but it could be us to look to embody and support with this part of the work as a service. However, I would question at this stage if Macwell is the best party to do so. There may be other parties who are better placed to do so, but that is a question for the future at this stage. Good. I don't see any more questions. Some last chance for anyone to place one if you would like to. Good. I take this as all questions answered. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Bob, for your contribution today. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and I hope you have a good idea of what is coming for us.
I think we have another question. I think we have another question, Rene, if you want to do.
Sorry. I did not see this one. Okay. Is your system compatible with all standard BMS operating systems? System question I think I take on my side at this stage. At the moment, the Nlight system in itself is a self-contained system, so it works by itself. However, we have the ability and capability to connect to other BMS systems via simple dry contacts in this case. So what you do is you give statuses out, which can then be used by the BMS systems to deploy alarms, to signal alarms, which is, for example, a standard requirement when you look into the Middle East market, which is a part of our remit. It's actually a standard requirement there, so that's part of our system and it's already there. However, it's at the moment on a basic dry contact phase. What we also have done, we have created an API which can be used by BMS systems to integrate our systems into the BMS system. However, that needs some work on both sides to make the APIs work. But general question and answer to this question is yes, with various methods.
I just add to that. I mean that interface, that API interface, is at the moment a project specific interface. However, what I'd say is whenever we presented that to the other side, if you like, the other, say for example, a smart building system, it's actually we've always got the answer about yes, it worked very well with that. So if there's interest, we'd be very happy to present that interface and talk to the other side, and I think we'd be very confident that it would be quite a simple integration.
Yeah. Hope this answers the question, Tim. Good. Okay. Good. Yeah, sorry I missed this before in the thread, but I hope we have answered it now. Again, we're good in time. We were planning 1 hour. We are 1 hour and 3. I think that's very good. It's very rare in a webinar or in a web meeting that this is on time. So I'm happy to be there as well. Thanks again for everybody for joining us. Our team will be in contact with most of you or with all of you over the next couple of days. See how we can support you with your project. See what could be interesting for you going forward. I hope you got a good picture of what we are going to launch now or what we are launching now. And I'm looking forward to catch up with you on the next in-person event, which we are trying to reorganize soon from the one we have canceled now. Thanks a lot again, Bob, for your presentation and for your input on the circular economy. It was very interesting and helpful. Thanks a lot from your side.
Thank you.
And everybody have a good evening. Thank you very much.